Tiptoe through the tulips. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So today we're diving deep into tulips. Super simple techniques. I teach you how to draw and paint them. We've got a super loose one on the right, a little more sophisticated in the middle, and super sophisticated on the left, adding in different color, glazing techniques, etc., etc. If you are just starting out and trying to learn how to paint tulips, this is a great tutorial for you. I have a couple other tutorials on tulips too here on my channel, so go check those out. I'll link them in the description box below. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. Let's just dive right into tulips and have some fun. All right, to begin, let's just go over how you could draw a tulip. And it's very simple. And I know if you say you can't draw, you totally can draw this. If you can write the letter U, you can draw a tulip. So it's just like writing the letter U, only you're going to curve it a little. So here's a regular U, which is fine for a tulip, and you can go up and down with the W and connect them. And you got a really kind of just simple, there's a stem, and then there's these lovely leaves. It's kind of like a cute folk art kind of tulip. And then you want to get into a more sophisticated looking tulip. So then it's more of a U kind of curving inward. Instead of having these little jagged edges, you're going to kind of bump and then pull it down, bump and pull it back. So I'll zoom in a little bit and then connect it with another one, and then you have your stem, and then your leaves get a little more sophisticated. They're hugging the tulip, right? So again, it's like a U but kind of curving inward, and it's up and down wiggle and kind of going down, and the same thing here, and do another one in the back, and that's the center, you see. And then you can have, like, you're painting in all the details, and there's your stem a little wider, and then your leaf. It was kind of hug, or they can kind of go down like that. You can slow this video down, but that's how you would draw it. And then if you're doing a composition, you have to figure how the tulips, go look at some photographs on tulip bouquets and how they are on the field. So they're obviously going to be curving, right? Some of these. So then you have the tulip again. Gonna go like here. I'm just doing a rough sketch. And then you have the leaves. You can have them kind of folding down, connecting on top. And then you have your simple little bouquet of tulips. So like I said, any skill level can do this, and how it changes is that how you paint it. Now this is kind of a cute tulip, even though people don't think so, but if you're doing something folk arty and you do a bunch of them for border, very cute, right? You can have a border for a card or anything. So I'm grabbing some arch paper. For the brushes I have with me today, I'm playing around with my Princeton 12 Neptune series, number 10 Velvet Touch series, number 8 long round Velvet Touch series. See, long, and this is just round. And this is just the Neptune series is more like a floppy brush, right? It's very looser. This is stiffer with the Velvet Touch series, more control, a little looser with this one. So mixing up some paints. Now we have our little tutorial on how to draw this. You can just take your pencil, do a simple little sketch of the one I showed you, and then have like the stem and the leaves where you want to. Maybe I don't have the one that goes down, but you don't really need to draw these leaves as much as you need to just paint them. So in many different ways you can paint tulips. I'll do a little stiffer one in the beginning for those of you who love the stiff brush, which is number 10. Loosening up some paint here, over here. I'm going to put this closer so you can see. This is Bright Rose from Holbein, which is such a beautiful color. Perfect for this exercise. I like to mix my paints up all at once. And I'll mix up a nice green, so cadmium yellow deep, and a little bit of Prussian blue. And you can make more varieties of this green by adding in more yellow. See? More of a chartreuse green. And more Prussian blue to make it darker. And I always add sometimes a little bit of brown, which is the burnt umber, to take off the edge of that blue. So you get the 3 different greens happening. So take your number 10 brush, I'm going to have a paper towel close by. I always have these close by. And you can just take the color, water it down to the consistency of tea, very loose, wet, and do your first wash, just a pale pink, going over this whole thing, this section we do, and a little bit here, right? Now, you can take, this is the wet and wet technique. As you do that pale wash, you grab the thick, almost like butter paint right out of the tube, but I'm going to grab a little bit of this color called cadmium red light, mix it together, just to make the color pink a little bit different. So I'm mixing it, grabbing some more bright rose, mixing it in. See how thick it's barely moving? This is so watery. Add a little bit of water to this, and you can kind of tap it in on the edges here. Right? It's kind of do a spider thing, and you can kind of push it along by taking the tip of your brush and kind of pushing it downward. Little lines like this. See, and then you have a really kind of pretty, I'm pulling it kind of much more down here, fixing my edge here, and going back and adding deeper color on the tip of the tulip. It's a simple way to make a sophisticated looking tulip, and you can kind of play with putting the paint going downward. My brush is messing up here a bit. Lift a little bit. If it's not cooperating, you just kind of go like this and kind of lift from the bottom. You want it to go down into it, but that's it. Simple, sophisticated, easy. Grab the same dark color. You can just kind of wiggle out here. You can leave the center kind of white, right? Leave a little space. We can add a color in a bit. Now we have our greens mixed up. Grab the medium green. Go from the top where the bloom is. Just go down for your stem. Grab that same medium green. You're going to take this stroke where we're pushing down. Oh, need more paint. Pushing down and kind of connecting back. Really, and if you don't have enough, see, it wasn't watery enough. It wasn't tea coffee consistency where you can really move the paint. If it's not, when you're on Arches paper, by the way, I didn't mention this, I'm on Arches paper, 100% cotton cold press. All the description of like all the used tools that I use are in the description box. And now here, we just go up and swing back, come back down. I drew it, but now I'm painting it, see? It's a simple movement. Of course, I need more paint on my brush. Now, while that's still wet, you can take some of the darker paint that I mixed in here. You can kind of tap it in on the tips, on the bottom, in here, a little bit here. And it's going to give it some more vitality, a little more three-dimensional. Kind of tapping on paper towel. See, if it's not moving, you can kind of push it to move it to the paint where it's kind of blending nicely. It looks a little more three-dimensional this way. Otherwise, it's kind of just flat color green. And just kind of go like this. And this took 0 time. You know you didn't draw that. It took 2 seconds to draw that. Right? It's a little trick on the back of your brush. You can scrape while it's wet. Little lines on the tulip leaf. And look at that. That looks much more realistic, right? I might grab some more Prussian blue, some more burnt umber, a little bit of the yellow. Get a really thick, deep, dark green. And kind of tap in just to give it a little more three-dimensionality. in here. If it seems a little too dark, I just clean off my brush and kind of manipulate that paint a little bit and add some lighter green again, giving it like a little shadow on the side. If that's too much for you, just stick with what I just showed you in the beginning. And remember that little space we left in the middle? You can go back in, grab a little of your cadmium yellow deep and some burnt umber, mix them together so it's not so bright yellow. And you can put a little bit of the yellow in here. Or if you really want a deep color, like it's the middle, it's like really dark. It's one of the two ways. I'm taking this off so you can see. I might just go grab some Prussian blue, mix it with the bright rose and even some red, get a dark color in here. Getting a dark reddish pink color. See, I'm mixing it. Keep adding some pink, so it's a deep pink color and some red. And then you can put that in there. Instead of the yellow, you want some depth. See that? Now it has depth. Super, super simple tulip. Now we're going to do another one where it's a little looser, a little funner, a little freer. So using some colors, I'm going to go back and grab I'm using the Princeton 12 Neptune series. Grabbing, see all that water I just dumped in there. And that bright pink, and I'm grabbing some of that pretty red. And now I'm like, I understand the shape of the flower and maybe how it kind of can curve and bend. They don't really stick up straight like that. Some do maybe, but they always are bending as you can see them in the stores. This brush holds a lot of water, which is great. I might tilt my paper a little bit, but again, you're just pushing down, connecting them, right? It's like a connection. You do like 1, 2, a little blobby, and I'll do 3, kind of bending down. Shoo, shoo. 2 sound effects. Right? Simple, loose. You can go back in and grab thicker paint again. You can play with this while it's wet. This is just a loose way to make a tulip. See the same kind of premise. I'm kind of doing that line, but it's the paint's a little thicker. Moving that line a bit. And we can kind of wait till it dries too and go back in and do another little swoop. This little area's got a little cauliflower edge. I can fix that or just leave it. It looks fine either way. And then we can grab our greens. Grabbing some more yellow and some more Prussian blue. It can be like a nice medium green. Again, get really fast. And then push down and pull. Push down, kind of go back, opposite way. Really kind of quick way of making a tulip. Okay, that really took like 3 seconds. It may not look like a perfect, realistic one, but it's still, you know what it is, right? Simple pushing down, pulling back method. Again, you can see it's really kind of wet, but you can use that same technique with the back of the paintbrush. Scrape the lines that you see in a tulip. Gets a little more realistic that way. So I love to blend and bleed on this one. I might go in here and just kind of tweak with my tip of my brush. Some of those little lines that kind of got messed up a little bit. I didn't do the center like I did the first one with the dimension, but I don't need to. Just a really simple tulip. Many different ways, right? And I'm going to go on to another one, just another quick, I'm going to add this, another quick one. This one will be a combination of using the a loose technique and the tight technique, right? So maybe you want to plan it out. You might want to draw out where you're going to put your tulips. So similar to that one, just going to lightly sketch where I'll go. Kind of curve a crisscross on that one. Maybe I'll have them, usually doing things in odd numbers, 3s, 5s, 4 wouldn't that be great? So I'll do another third, 1, 2, 3. Maybe this one kind of like on the side. So I just sketched out where I'm going to plan to do that. So the tulip itself will make a little more sophisticated, realistic. I'm going to grab that red, kind of playing around in here. Again, we use this brush. I'm just kind of pushing down and kind of wiggling it, right? Grab some water, move this paint. When you have less water, it's hard to move it on this paper. So I'm grabbing a little bit more water. It was not enough. Like palish pink. Leave a little space in between on that one. And then this one, kind of curving again. I can leave a little space, going in that kind of U shape. I can put a little color back here. It's still very, very damp, right? Now this time I might wait and not blend and bleed with wet on wet. There's another way of doing it without doing that. We're going to wait till it dries and do more hard edge scenario. So I use this one, which is really stiff. I'll go back and use my number 12 Neptune series. This lovely green color. Some of my colors are melding here. Separation. Again. Mix up a lot. Look at all that water. This paper soaks it up, so you really need to do it. Mix it good. Get it all on that brush. I want the leaves to have just more natural, loose feel to them. So I'm using this brush. See that? Just a little swoop. You get that dry brush effect that's really kind of cool. Grab it here. I love that. So you got some energy happening with this brush. Maybe that's a little too crazy, but I don't know. I prefer it over the stiff looking one. It's my preference. And you can kind of tweak it if it's a little too dry brushy for you. See there? Combination of like a little stiff, not so stiff. You can go in and wait till that dries and add some deeper color. I'm mixing up some darker color here because we already went so dark. And you can still do the scrapey lines if you want to. I have to add some more color back in here with your back of your brush. It's a lovely little trick to get those little scrapey edges. That one might have already dried a little bit. No, pretty good. Okay, so now we let this dry and we come back and we do the finished tulip, looking a little more sophisticated, but then a little bit loose at the same time. So now it's dry, right? And we go back in and we just take the consistency of this one. See, it's moving. It's not super loose. It's getting towards a coffee milk. I tap my paper towel if I don't want the excess paint. And then I just kind of play with hard edge. See that? Get used to doing these kind of like swooping lines. And you can clean off your brush, just water. I'm going to clank, clank. And you can kind of blend it that way. Right? So many ways to paint this. I think give a little more control when it's a little drier. Wet on wet can be intimidating for some people. So I'm giving you different scenarios so that you, if you're more comfortable doing a dry, wet on dry, and moving at a slower pace like this, and then cleaning off your brush, just grabbing some water and then pushing the paint around, then that will work for you. Then to bleed it. And then you go back and add the pink in the back. See? A little pink in the back. Again, hard, dried already. You might like those hard edge lines because that's another look. Doesn't always have to blend, by the way. See that? And add the little one in the background. I'm leaving some spaces, if you noticed, in between these. And then I'll grab almost like butter consistency of the same colors again, barely moving them, a little thicker. See the very, and you can kind of blend that. Kind of go like this while it's still damp. Get more intense. More control with this tighter brush. See that? Just kind of, I call it like almost like feathering, but swooping the brush downward. Just those simple movements like that. Go a little deeper in here. Going back, moving this around. Now, most tulips are not one pink on pink on pink. This is where the sophistication comes in. This is a simple skill, by the way. I add a variety of colors to my tulips. So get those pinks. Now I'm going to grab some ultramarine blue. I know. Call me crazy. Loosening up. Now I don't want it this loose. I'm going to tap it on my paper towel. I don't know if you can see this. Tap it over here. Get off all the excess paint, and we can kind of play with adding this in for some shading. You see this? See how pretty that gets? Just a little goes a long way. Don't just do one note kind of colors. Add a variety of tones. And just the blue on top of that pink. Right? You get a little bit darker if you want to. Inside for that depth. I can go back and add some of that pinky red. But, you know, and then you can also, again, there's that red color. Take some of that by itself and add some of that color in. Don't be afraid to add more variety. It's that cadmium red light. A little bit of yellow. So I've got the yellow deep. Gonna loosen that up a little bit. Add a little bit of yellow on top of the pink. See that? It just changes the bloom ever so slightly. A little more sophisticated. And you're going back and forth, adding in some the bright pink rose again. These are things I'd like to play with so that it just doesn't seem like pink on pink on pink on pink. It just becomes, you wouldn't really look like that in nature, the shades and the shadows from nature. Same thing with the screen. Grab some Prussian blue. I've got a little bit of water in here. And start to change that leaf a little bit. Grab some yellow on there. See how we do this? Just it's layering, glazing and layering, same kind of conversation. And I guess in watercolor they call it glazing, and like acrylic and oil they call it layering, same thing. Layer upon layer. But you see how I just added a little bit of the blue it kind of changes this. All those little nuances that make your flowers unique and different. You just don't want a copycat of a flower. You want to have a say in it, you know. That's where your artistic creativity comes in. This is where you have a voice. If you see some of the painters that I like, that I highlighted, like Mark Foley, he has a voice in watercolor. His is so dynamic. His shades and shadows and his washes are amazing. And he creates these shades and shadows by using these dynamic washes. It's just incredible. So once you get the basics down of how to use the watercolor, then you play with it. You don't have to follow the rules 24/7. You can really go out of the box. Adding in, see, I'm just adding in more color here. Getting some blue as I'm talking to you. See this Prussian blue over here? Grabbing the Prussian blue, and I'm tweaking. I had that loose still with the dry brush, but I'm tweaking in with this different brush, adding in some more depth to our tulips. So they're not one note, right? And you do that a couple times with the layering. Once it dries, you can go back over it again. This is still very wet. That's how you make a more sophisticated looking tulip, right? And I showed you how you just grab ultramarine blue and you're putting it on top of the color. And it's going to create that shadow and a different look altogether. Really kind of pretty. So I hope you enjoyed this little lesson on tulips. Many different ways to paint them, different varieties. So you just get like not this one note of tulip. You have really kind of play with the actual flower a little bit more. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. And like I said, Patreon's got the additional one. And if you could consider joining Patreon, click the link in the description box for joining Patreon. It's a place where you can support my channel. If you like my channel, if you're enjoying all my videos here that are free on YouTube, you can support me on Patreon, which I appreciate so much. And you get all kinds of freebies with that, with your Patreon membership. So take care, guys. Have a fantastic day. Have fun painting. Add a little color to your life, especially if it's gray and dull outside. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.